lesson is going to be covering the last lesson in chapter 6. So you guys are going to be getting ready to take a test this week on Friday. So lesson 5 is using the Pythagorean theorem. So we went over this in lesson 2. So we're just going to be using this in different problems during this lesson. So if you remember, the Pythagorean theorem is used with right triangles where a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And remember that c is that long side of the triangle, it's the hypotenuse, and that is the side that is opposite of your right angle. And then the legs are a and b. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Alright, we're going to be going over a couple of examples so you guys can take notes. Remember, this is the stuff that you'll be using on your homework and in your tests, so take notes, and if you have any questions, you can ask them tomorrow in class. So our first example is finding a distance on a coordinate plane. So our coordinate plane here, and then the question asks, the park is 5 miles east of your home. The library is 4 miles north of the park. How far is your home from the park? And you're going to round your answer to the nearest tenth. So you'll be using your calculators for this. So we have our coordinate plane. We start at 0, 0 for home. And then the park is 5 miles east. So this is going to be our park, 5 miles. And then from the park to the library is 4 miles north. And so we mark 4 going up for the library. So what we need to figure out is, what is this distance from home to the library, or from the library to your home? So we take our Pythagorean theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're trying to find that c squared. So one of our legs is 4, the other leg is 5, so 4 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. So 14 plus 25 equals that c squared. 16 plus 25. 16 plus 25 is going to be 41. So 41 equals c squared. So we need to find that square root because we need c by itself. So the square root of 41 is 6.403 and some other numbers. So when we round that to the nearest tenth, our answer is 6.4 miles, and that is the distance from the library to your home, 6.4 miles. Okay? And that's using the Pythagorean theorem to find distance on a coordinate plane. All right, our second problem is going to be a little bit of a word problem with a picture. So we need to find the height of the firework, and again, rounding to the nearest tenth. So we have a little person in our triangle. So from where the firework was shot off, we've got a line here, and your viewing height. So that's 1 point. The difference from the ground to your viewing height is 1.5 meters. We're going to be using that later on in the problem, and you'll see that. So from where the rocket is shot off, that is 300 meters from you to that spot. And then from you to the firework is 335 meters. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And of course we have x because we need to figure out what this height is. How high is the firework? So we know what our hypotenuse is, we know what one of our legs are, and we're trying to find that other leg. So 300 squared, or x squared plus 300 squared equals 350 squared. So we have that x squared plus 90,000 equals 112,225. So we want to get this x by itself, the x squared by itself, so we need to subtract 90,000 from both sides. So that gives us x squared equals 22,225. So we find that square root because we want x by itself. So x equals 149.080 and some other numbers. So rounding that to the nearest tenth, our x equals 149.1. So that's what this x is. But we need to know all the way to the ground. So this is where we need to use that 1.5 meters. So we take our x, 149.1, and we add that 1.5. And so the height of the firework is 150.6 meters from the ground. And so that's a real life application for the Pythagorean theorem. So we have a couple of other key ideas that our next example is going to be using. So the Pythagorean triple, that is the set of three positive integers a, b, and c, where a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so the big key idea that you're going to be using on your homework is this converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So if the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared is true for the side lengths of a triangle, then the triangle is a right triangle. So if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, if that is true, then that triangle is a right triangle. So when using the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, always substitute the length of the longest side for c, because you always assume that the longest side is going to be your hypotenuse. So when you're trying to figure out if a triangle is a right triangle and you're using the Pythagorean theorem, always substitute the longest side for your c. And so we're going to have an example of that with our example number 3. So example number 3, we're identifying the right triangle. So we have this triangle. We've got our three sides. We've got 9 centimeters, 40 centimeters, and 41 centimeters. Obviously 41 is the biggest number, so we're going to substitute that 41 for the c. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so we just plug in our numbers. So we've got 9 squared plus 40 squared equals 41 squared. And we don't know yet if this is if this is true. So 9 squared is 81, 40 squared is 1600, and 41 squared is 1681. So when we add 81 plus 1600, that gives us 1681, which equals 1681. And so that makes this triangle a right triangle because this equals this. That a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So then we also have this triangle. So this one, the lengths are 12 feet, 18 feet, and 24 feet. So once again, 24 is going to be the biggest side length, and so we substitute that for c. And then the 18 and 12 are going to be the legs for your a and b. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we just plug in those numbers. 12 squared plus 18 squared equals 24 squared. So 12 squared is 144, 18 squared is 324, and that 24 squared is 576. So when we add 144 plus 324, that gives us 468, and it does not equal 576, and so this is not a right triangle. And that is using the converse of the Pythagorean theorem to figure out if your triangle is actually a right triangle. So that is all for this lesson. Make sure that you do your on your own questions so that we can go over them together in class tomorrow. And then you will use the rest of class time to work on your assignment. If you have any questions, I can answer those in class for you. And I will see you in class tomorrow.